New evidence proves Kyren Lacy was innocent. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Admittedly, this is going to be a really difficult episode to do. If you're an LSU fan or someone who follows college football, you're probably aware, even if loosely, of what transpired with former LSU wide receiver Kyren Lacy in the early part of 2025. If you're not familiar, the quick catch-up is on December the 17th in Lafourche Parish, which is in the southern part of Louisiana, near Kyren Lacy's hometown. There was a fatal car accident. 78-year-old man died in that wreck. Kyren Lacy, about a month later, on January 13th, was arrested in connection with that fatal accident. He was charged with vehicular homicide, felony hit and run with a death, and reckless operation of a vehicle. It was alleged at the time that Kyren Lacy was driving recklessly. There was a no passing zone. He was allegedly speeding through this no passing zone, facing oncoming traffic, caused a vehicle to swerve, which ultimately led to a fatal wreck. That's what was in the initial Lafourche Parish police report. As Kyren Lacy was awaiting his legal proceedings, he was in Houston on April the 12th when he committed suicide. And now we have information that has come to light from Kyren Lacy's attorney, Matt Ory, which, in my mind, and I'm certain for everyone who consumes this information, will completely exonerate Kyren Lacy, and beyond a shadow of a doubt will prove that he was not only not guilty, he was innocent of these charges. I want to be clear. This isn't a situation where the attorney for someone who is accused of a crime is walking out of with his or her client after being released from jail, and there's cameras waiting, and this attorney defiantly declares, "I intend to prove my client's innocence." That's not this. You see, when Kyren Lacy committed suicide, within 48 hours of that tragic day, Kyren Lacy was going to appear before a grand jury, and his attorney, Matt Ory, who you're going to hear from in a second, was going to present evidence that, some of which you're going to see here in a second, that I believe would have exonerated Kyren Lacy, and a grand jury would not have brought charges. Now that's speculative on my part, to be clear. There's an old, I did news in my career before I did sports, and there was an old saying that a grand jury would indict a ham sandwich, meaning it's very easy to get an indictment. An indictment isn't a conviction, for those that don't know the legal process. An indictment from a grand jury is just a jury of your peers declaring that there's enough evidence to move forward with trial. That's all an indictment is. It's not a conviction. It's just to say there's enough here to move forward. It's very easy, generally speaking, to get an indictment. I don't know that a grand jury would have indicted Kyren Lacy, given what we now know. This is the evidence that attorney Matt Ory was going to present to this grand jury, at least parts of it, that we now get to see. So attorney Matt Ory did an interview with HTV 10 in South Louisiana. He's sitting with a reporter, uh, and they're going over this evidence. They have the full police report from the Lafourche Parish Sheriff's District Attorney, I should say, and Louisiana State Police, who later took over the investigation. They have forensic information, black box information from the vehicles, and surveillance video of the wreck. There is no ambiguity here. We see what happens, and you can compare and contrast it to what is alleged. And Kyren Lacy was nearly 100 yards behind the wreck at the time it took place. So to remind you, I'm going to piece through this. And again, I shouldn't say again, this is the first time I'm going to mention this. This is a long form sit down. It's 44 minutes long. I watched the entire 44 minutes. I would encourage you to do the same. My feeling is always, don't take my word for it. I'm happy to comb through press conferences at times when we're talking about sports stuff, and then this 44-minute video, because that's my job to do that, and to give you an opinion and sort of what I was able to extract from that. But if you have 44 minutes, watch this video, and it will be convincing. They go through a diagram of the entire scene of the wreck. They go through surveillance video. They go through body cam footage from state police interviewing witnesses. Attorney Matt Ory is telling his side of things, interactions that he's had with witnesses and with the Lacy family, with Kyren himself. It's a 44-minute sit down. This isn't a 3-minute news package. It's a 44-minute sit down where they go through everything. It's very, very extensive. And remember, the original allegation was that Kyren Lacy on a 2-lane highway was speeding. He entered the left lane to pass, and this was a no-pass zone. Oncoming traffic had to swerve to avoid Kyren Lacy. That's what caused the collision, the fatal collision. Kyren sped off. There was one report that he even returned to the scene and then left without calling for help. That was the original report. That is now ridiculous when you see what you're about to see. This is what if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. If you're listening on podcast, what you're going to hear is attorney Matt Ory, Kyren Lacy's attorney, describing this footage. And this is footage of the fatal crash. And then seconds after the fatal crash, Kyren Lacy in a green Dodge Charger driving up to slowly and past this wreck. Certainly not causing the wreck.
At some point in time, you're going to see the collision, which we're going to know is vehicle number 2 from oncoming traffic colliding with the vehicle of Mr. Hall. You will see another vehicle come to a stop, and then you'll see Kyren Lacy come to a stop.
So as we've seen the video, it looks like the impact happens, and then Kyren Lacy is behind him. How far away was he from there?
Well, yeah, that's the beauty of the investigative report that I now have my hands on. We know from data that Kyren Lacy did, in fact, pass 4 cars. There's no disputing that. Further north, Kyren Lacy passed 4 cars. However, he was back in his lane of travel, 92.3 yards. Back in his lane, behind Mr. Hall. At the time of impact, he's 72.6 yards behind the vehicles at the time of impact. Keyword, behind the vehicles. That is not how this story was ever painted. Never.
The story was painted that Kyren Lacy was passing vehicles which caused the wreck, and then he sped off. It is abundantly clear that Kyren Lacy was nowhere near, relatively, the wreck. Now, what Attorney Ory said there with Kyren Lacy passing vehicles is indisputable. This was a no passing zone in Kyren Lacy. It was a 35-mile-an-hour zone. and Kyren Lacy passed 4 vehicles. But this was farther north away from the wreck. So he passes 4 vehicles, gets back into his lane of traffic, and he's nearly 100 yards away. He's already back in his lane of traffic, and he's nearly 100 yards away from the wreck. You can see the wreck happen. Another vehicle in front of Kyren approaches and passes the wreck, and then Kyren approaches, slow stops, passes the wreck. He had nothing to do whatsoever with causing this wreck. If you want to charge him with a moving violation for passing in a no-pass zone and speeding, okay. That's a thing that everyone acknowledges. But vehicular homicide and felony hit and run are absurd. Like, you don't have to have any logic or piece anything together. Watch the video that we have now seen, which fully exonerates. You don't need to see anything else. It fully exonerates Kyren Lacy from what was originally alleged by the district attorney and then in the state police report. Now, there's another piece of this actually that gets really messy because the state police report has a major inconsistency that might border on illegal. I want to step aside to get the elements in I have to, but I'll explain that piece next here. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. You can just move through life, or you can find the things that move you. It's your choice. You can choose to get out there, choose your people. You can choose to go for it, like really go for it. Just choose to do something that moves you. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. Mazda, move and be moved. We're also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. How about Harlem Berry for the LSU Tigers? Scored his first career rushing touchdown as a Tiger, delivered late in that game when the Tigers needed to get something going on the ground. When the pressure was on, Harlem Berry, no hesitation, no delay. And just like Harlem Berry delivered for the Tigers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. So stack it all up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. And we're brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. That's ONE, onepeloton.com. We've talked about now maybe the most important part of this tragedy, which is that Kyren Lacy was not involved in the wreck. It is nevertheless a tragedy where Mr. Hall, the 78-year-old man who was killed, lost his life. His family will mourn him forever. And in the truest sense of the word, that is a tragedy. A tragedy in a literal sense involves a death. People misuse the word tragedy a lot, but in a literal sense, by definition, a tragedy involves a death. This was a tragedy. This was a tragic car wreck where a man died. But Kyren Lacy had literally nothing to do with Mr. Hall's death in this accident. He was nearly 100 yards behind the accident at the time of the wreck. But it gets more complicated because as Louisiana State Police was conducting their investigation, there was a state trooper who we see in this interview via body cam footage going to speak to a man who is driving the gold truck, as it's described in this instance. So all of the people, their names, addresses, phone numbers were all redacted from the police report so as to protect their identities. So we just know that there was vehicle 2, which is the vehicle that collided with Mr. Hall. And there was this gold truck, which was in front of vehicle 2. So without having the luxury of showing you an illustration here, just understand that there was a gold truck and then vehicle 2 behind the gold truck. As the gold truck was slowing, vehicle 2 swerved to avoid the gold truck and hit Mr. Hall. Those are the two vehicles that collided while Kyren was nearly 100 yards behind them. So the state trooper finds the driver of the gold truck and goes to get his statement on a police report, to get his official statement. There's about a 4.5 minute clip of body cam footage that they show. And you're more than welcome, again, to go watch this in its entirety. I would encourage you to do so. But this is a clip where you're going to hear this trooper arriving at this isn't at the scene of the crime. This is the man who drives the gold truck at his home, and the trooper has gone to this man's home to get his statement. And this is that interaction, which you are going to see is a little jarring, because it certainly feels like there's an awful lot of improprieties here.
Just right here, if you could, I'll just have you write exactly what you saw. Just make sure to include, where you were.
I don't even know what the name of that highway.
It's Highway 20. Highway 20. That you just.
All right, me and my wife gonna figure out right quick.
Okay, just make sure you add in there that you had to slam on your brakes, and the brakes, you had to slam on the brakes to avoid that charger, and the brakes locked up to avoid that charger. That's.
I ain't skid mark or nothing, but I wasn't even gone, man. That lady in the back of me, she didn't saw what's happening. That's how she called that wreck. She was running in the back of me. She pulled on the other side, and that's not in it.
So, but the charger was coming right at you, correct? Right. And that's why you had to slam on your brake, the head on with you. So yeah, just make sure you include that, and that's very important because we're trying to locate this charger right now. So just include that in the statement, and I'll read it over, and then I'll be out of here.
The state trooper is telling this gentleman to make sure to include that you had to slam on your brakes and the charger was coming at you. We see in the video Kyren Lacy's charger was not coming at this man. He was 100 yards behind them. That's just inaccurate. The man, you hear him say, I didn't have skid marks or anything, meaning he didn't have to slam on his brakes. And you hear the state trooper say, make sure you mention that you had to slam your brakes and your brakes locked up. And the man says, I wasn't even going fast. Well, they have black box data that shows the man driving the gold truck, the gentleman whose voice you heard or you could see there, was going just under 29 miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone. He was going 29 miles an hour. He wasn't speeding. He didn't slam on his brakes. He was going 29 miles an hour. A lady behind him in vehicle 2 swerved to avoid him and hit Mr. Hall. Video shows that. Forensics show that. But here's the problem. The police report that's written is inconsistent with the statement you just heard that man give. And the police report is not signed by that witness, which leads you to believe that state trooper wrote his own report, not the report that man who drove the gold truck gave, and it wasn't signed by the man who drove the gold truck. I'm not a legal expert, but that sure feels like you are fraudulently creating a police report that is inconsistent with the testimony a witness is giving. Again, I don't know all the ins and outs of the legal code, but that's a problem. And I'm not trying to paint state troopers in a bad light. My goodness, I have the utmost respect for the women and men who protect and serve us. And even if there's one bad egg, it doesn't mean that they're all bad. Overwhelmingly, these are amazing people that keep us safe. My goodness. But this is something that someone has to answer for. a man is on body cam footage verbalizing his statement, and what he says on the body cam footage is not what is written, which, by the way, in this full 44-minute video, they show you the full written statement line by line, and it is not signed by this man. That's a problem. None of that is going to bring Mr. Hall back. None of that is going to bring Kyren Lacy back. This is a tragedy in the truest sense, where two families continue to mourn. But if there's two takeaways that I have from this, I'll leave you with two. One, this is yet again another key example, an illustration of the importance of why in this country we have a presumption of innocence until guilt is proven. And we could go through so many cases throughout history, notable cases like Duke Lacrosse. And this is another one where a young man was convicted in the public media, in a public forum, when he was wrong. Kyren Lacy was wrong to pass in a no-pass zone. But that had nothing to do whatsoever with this wreck. And so many people convicted him before he ever had his day in court. And ultimately, he thought he had been convicted and he took his life. The other part of this is to shine light on the importance of mental health. You know, Kyren Lacy's father put out a social media post shortly after Kyren died, encouraging parents to check on their children and their mental health. Because you never know what's going on with people, unless if they verbalize it. And oftentimes people bury things down. And it's tragic that this is what happened with Kyren in this moment, where he felt he had no other way out, even though clearly with all of this evidence, he was going to be exonerated. Mental health is a very serious issue. If anyone has ever lost loved ones to mental health issues, and I have, candidly, don't dismiss it. Check on people you love, ask the right questions, and avoid tragedies like this. It's hard to sit here today and say that this is a relief, because two people are dead. Families are mourning and grieving and will forever have to go on without their loved ones. But at least now, Kyren Lacy's name is cleared, and his family can honor his legacy without question of whether or not he did something wrong. And maybe the most important lesson here will be to remind people the importance of maintaining innocence until guilt can be proven. It's why we have that legal process in this country. And we have to be mindful, as easy as it is sometimes to jump to conclusions. We have to be mindful of that. And this is a tragic reminder. May Mr. Hall and may Kyren Lacy both rest in peace, and may both of their families find some degree of comfort. That's going to do it for us here today on Locked on LSU. It's your team every day.